Call the meeting to order. And we'll reconvene out of closed session, and if Mark will give us a brief report.
We had a classified personnel issue with use of sick leave for family. We had a stipulated agreement with the student for discipline and the certified leave of absence. Paula made the motion and Dr. Kovic seconded it, and they were unanimously approved, all three.
And if we can get flag salute, Mr. Colby, would you like to do?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And
Dr. Richley.
Dr. Richland, please.
Well, Savannah's going to start with her presentation first. So why don't you start?
I'll help you. That's
I can go find anything else.
okay. Good evening. Welcome to Sanhedrin. I'm Mrs. Richley. I've been here for just counted 6 years. I think maybe even 7. This year we added another college class section this semester, English 85. And Savannah is going to share about the college class that we've been having here for 3 years, career planning class. And one of our main goals at Sanhedrin is to make sure everyone has a clear career pathway and know of the different ways to follow it. So I'll have Savannah share what she chose to research for her class.
Okay, so hi everyone, I'm Savannah Southwick, I'm in 12th grade, and I recently took Miss Richley's college class at Sanhedrin, and we took it for a whole semester, and I got a passing grade, so that's always good. And what I chose to do was be a social worker, or study and be a social worker. Well,
We need them.
I'm nervous. Okay. So social and human services. So what they do is they keep records or prepare reports for owner or management. They visit individuals in homes or attend group meetings. They interview family members to compile information about whatever they need. And they submit reports and review problems with a superior, someone that's higher up. And then this is a day in the life of a social worker. Their median salary is $49,470. So you want to have a strong desire to help others with this job, and I feel that I fortunately have this because I want to help as many people as I can, especially in the world that we live in today. And then they refer the correct treatment centers to clients, so like AA or anything, rehabs, whatever they might need. And they actively train as needed in order to meet all certification standards. And this is the job outlook from 2018 to 2028. It's a 13%, much faster than average growth. Growth is expected as more people seek treatment for their addictions, which is kind of sad if you think about it, because like people need more social workers as people tend to struggle more, like with any addiction. So, but that's also why I want to get into this career, because I want to help people as much as I can. So it's a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. The job prospects are expected to be good. And then the knowledge that you would require is psychology, which I'm only Loker over here. I'm taking his psychology class, and which is the knowledge of human behavior and performance. So basically, I'm so sorry, I'm so nervous. So basically, it's really like broadened my thought process of like how we react to the things that we do and how we feel the things that we do and like our emotions. So his classes, I've really enjoyed it. Like he's a great teacher. You're awesome. So he's here right there. And then you would need sociology, which is the study of social problems, and anthropology, which is the study of human societies and cultures. And the skills that you would need is you would need to be good with customer and personal service. That's very good to have. And obviously the English language and therapy and counseling. And then the first step would be to go to Mendocino College, which I applied for yesterday. Yay. And then which you would need to get your certificate of achievement, and the units required are 35.5 through 41.5. And some of the required classes are Intro to Social Work, Alcohol and Other Drug Studies, and Fundamentals of Interviewing and Counseling. And then the next step would transfer over to Sonoma State University. They have great food. And which you would need a bachelor's degree in social work. And these programs teach students about diverse populations, human behavior, social welfare policy, and ethics in social work. Which you would need 2 years of supervised training and experience after obtaining an MA degree is typically required for clinical social workers. And then here's the beautiful Mendocino College, which you all know. And then here's the beautiful Sonoma State University, which most of you probably know. There's a huge clock there. So.
And you went on a trip there, right?
Yeah, I went there in 8th grade with the AVID class. And then the technology and tools that you would need is the database user interface and the electronic mail software and the spreadsheet software and the voice recognition software. That's a bit of a tough one. And then some of the related occupations to this job would be probation officers, correctional treatment specialists, substance abuse and behavior disorder counselor, social or community service manager, or clinical counseling or school psychologist, and community health worker. So they all kind of tie in with each other, as you can see. And what's trending here is healthcare social workers, mental health and substance abuse social workers, and child, family, and school social workers. So this is pretty much what is, like I said, trending today, and the highest would be medical and public health, following with mental health and substance abuse, which is the one that I would like to do, which is the category I would like to do. And what I learned from my mentor interview. So I interviewed a youth mentor, and she basically told me the pros and cons of it, and she pretty much told me like it's also a broken system pretty much, and you have to like know that you won't be able to help everyone as you would like to. So basically if there's like a situation where like a call, say for example like sexual abuse or something, and if you go there and if that kid doesn't open up because the parents told them not to, then typically that case can't be solved because nothing is being said. So I learned that side from her, but also the good side would be actually helping families, like being able to just help anyone with like sexual abuse, alcohol or drug abuse, just anything. And so that's the good side, is actually being able to help people. So yeah. And then why I want to be a social worker. So it runs deep with me actually, because personally I've seen how these people work. I've seen how social workers and probation officers work. I didn't have the best childhood, so I've seen it firsthand. It's not like I just like am thinking like, oh, like I think they can do well. I know that they can do good things because I've been through it and I've seen it like firsthand. So that's why, and I would love to help as much people as I can, because like I said, today's world is kind of not very good. So that's why if I can help one family at a time, then I would love to do that. So. And then this is a video of We Are Social Workers, which is in, here, I'll show you. It's not Mendo or Sonoma State, but it's a Buffalo College in New York, I believe. So this is like, but I like the video, so.
We are social workers.
Yeah, University at Buffalo.
We value principles like social justice,
diversity,
Human rights.
And the dignity and worth of each and every individual. We wake up every day motivated to make positive change.
Change in the lives of individuals and families.
Change in our communities. And government and policies.
Creating change is not easy. It means we have to confront issues that most people prefer to ignore.
Issues like trauma, abuse,
addiction, poverty.
Injustice and inequality.
It is definitely not easy.
but nothing that's worth fighting for is.
But nothing that is worth fighting for is.
So we continue to work every day to collectively create a better vision of society.
Will you join us?
Will you join us?
Will you join us in changing the world?
So there's my video, and then the next is just my We're Excited, and that's my presentation. Do you guys happen to have any questions for me?
I want to have one statement, though,
Okay.
not a question.
Okay.
Exactly what she represents is what we wanted out of Sanhedrin.
Thank you.
She has a high school experience in Mr. Lilliker's class. She was an Abbott in middle school. She's in a college class here, and she takes her core classes. She gets the best of all those worlds in a situation where she's kind of managing that. So it is a different alternative than the high school, traditional high school. But she got to do college, she got to do high school classes, she participates in things at the high school that she's interested in, but doesn't have to be at all of them. And so it really creates exactly what we want from here. She's a really good example of how that fit together. So, thank you.
Master Bird. Okay, so now...
You have a question?
Not a question, but a statement.
okay.
So you have 3 social workers sitting here right now, us 3, from child welfare. So when you get through your schooling, come see us.
Okay. Okay.
We're always hired.
Okay, awesome. That makes me so happy. Does anybody else have any more questions or comments? We're good?
Thank you.
Okay. Now we are, is there a podium?
All right, Savannah promised to help out with the graduation, so I want to welcome everybody to the class of 2020, the first graduation of this year. As the students come in, Savannah's going to read off their names as they come in. And then I'm going to say a short thing, and we'll be through. So here we go. You ready?
Taylor Quinlivan. Tatiana Viali. Ariana Favalora. Cody Brandon.
So each student here earned the Sanhedrin High School diploma in a different way. One of the students up here was at the college most of the day, and she earned her high school credits through college. Another one joined us late in the game, and she was able to graduate early. Another student I've known here since middle school, and she worked really hard to make her way and graduate early from high school. And they've all done a great job of navigating the pathway of Sanhedrin High School, and they all represent what and who a Sanhedrin High School student is. So let's give them a round of applause. I want to say congratulations, you have done a great job, and you go out in the world and you do great things.
Now, they can't get away without a graduation question, because one of our issues is, and one of the things we require here is what are you going to do when you leave here? It's not enough just to get a diploma. Go to your first. Yeah, I'm putting you on the spot. You're holding up the male end of the graduation ceremony here.
I'm going to take a break from school for about a year, And then I'm going to go back to school, hopefully get my master's degree in law, and then become a police officer.
I'm gonna get a job, try and get my own place.
In what? Do you know yet?
No, not really.
Good. Good. Yeah, good.
After I graduate, I want to continue to grow, and I want to learn things that I am interested in, because being here I realize that there's a lot of things that I don't know, and I feel like there's so much out there to explore, and I'm ready for it.
Love you, Dr.
Oh, I want to go to Mendo and finish my general education, and then hopefully get into occupational therapy.
That's the other unique thing about Sanhedrin is we don't graduate on semesters. We graduate when you get 180 and you have your vocational endorsement. So when that happens, you're done. So magically, as we go through the year, people will graduate. And I'm hoping they're inspiring some others who are here as seniors right now to say, hey, that should be me. So, well done.
You're now a graduate. Congratulations, you're now a graduate.
Now you have to stay right there. So if you want to get a picture, let's go like right over here. If parents, you want to get a picture, you can get a good shot of all four of them. Good.
Cody, get closer! Get closer, dude!
I'm solo. I'm solo.
He's a lot.
Smile!
Smile, Cody, over here.
Smile at your boy.
Over here.
Thank you.
We're very proud of you and inspire your seniors on. Well done.
You want some cake?
Otherwise I'll just sit on your lap. I'm not shy.
What's your gauge? I know. You set up to that, like,
That was really
No,
That's one of the reasons we couldn't keep him in office, because he's still, he's still.
Have a good
Am I out of the way if I'm here?
Right there. You're gonna sit, are you gonna sit down?
Is that okay?
Yes. I think it's okay. Charlie's back. Yeah.
Oh, come on, Wally, even you got black with that.
I do. I'm just not going
No, I appreciate that. Congratulations. I'm so proud of you. Sorry, Richard. I'm glad you came. Oh, it's happy to see you. Good job. Good job. Is it on right now?
What are you doing here?
I can't see you guys. I'm proud of you. I know, you're gonna.
We gotta hit the gavel and keep going. We gotta hit the gavel and continue on. Alex, we're back.
Let's see, we are at the P1 attendance report.
You found that in your information, or there's not much to say other than the data is what it is, and I'd love to tell you that absentee rate was plummeting, that I would not be telling you the truth. It's pretty consistent. There are many initiatives going on to try and increase that.
I know some of the schools have in the past, for us for several years, have been doing a variety of incentive programs to try and get the kids to be there.
And we've looked at those. Some are marginally successful. Generally speaking, K-5 attendance is parental. 6-12 is the student. And so generally the programs have to be distinctively different. There's certainly not one size fits all. We're working on it.
I have a question. The percentages are, okay, so like here it'll go 94%, 95%, and that is all real consistent all of these years, it seems. So that's from the 100% being the 1491 or the 1469. Okay, and so like how does that affect the district for the loss of money? Like if you make $100 a year per kid, then you lose that 5%? I mean, is the 94 put on each kid and that's how they lose the money, or is it a whole kid's worth 6 kids or whatever?
Well, if you assume that an ADA or a student enrollment,
Uh-huh.
if you just use the average of 10,000,
Okay.
you can kind of figure it out. You're losing 3 to 5% of that based on their attendance. So,
Okay.
so whatever that number is, if it's 5% of 10,000 is pretty easy.
Yeah. But it's not really per kid, it's more per whole cluster of kids?
It's actually per child.
Kid. Okay, that's
Yeah,
what
it's
I thought.
actually per child
Okay.
every single day. That's the craziness of ADA, and you know I could jump up and soapbox on this.
Yeah.
But it's
And
like
that's
doing
good.
fantasy baseball stats, you know. Spencer missed 4th hour 3 months ago, and we lost
It's worth
$1.50 because of that.
$38.
I mean, it's kind of crazy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't exactly certain.
It would be just even better if they just did enrollment, not ADA. Because ADA literally means if Spencer shows up for the first 15 minutes of class and gets marked here, we're good for the day.
Yeah.
That kind of defeats the whole purpose of the program. But
And so the losses, they're generally, you know, like when it goes to enrollment, do we have any idea of where people go? I mean, are they going to neighboring counties, neighboring states, neighboring?
yeah, we don't have students who are just vanished. I mean, if they are, we try to figure out where are they, where they've been going. The office pursues that. Certainly at the secondary level, that never happens. Because the student would go from the high school to here, or independent study, or transfer somewhere. If they go to another district, we get a records request. But generally speaking, if they don't go anywhere, what happens to us is, you know, the student's not been here, and there's a 10-day flag that comes up. On a 10th day, with nothing changed, we get notified at the building level, so where is this student? And so we pursue that.
Do we need to accept that, or is that just basically correspondence?
It's informational.
Yeah, okay. Our next board meeting will be on March 11th at the Beckville Grove Middle School. So it won't be at the high school, I just comment, so we're spreading these around again. Measure G information, what?
Yeah, our website has got a lot of hits. You'll see signs around town. You'll see, I've been to most every civic group. One of my favorites, I was at VFW last night prior to their meeting, because they don't have political things during their meeting. Prior to their meeting, they invited me to come, and it's a great group of people, obviously. And veterans are a pretty solid group to go see. And so it was great to meet with them. I've been to all the other civic groups and been working with that. I was on the radio.
Eric's on the radio?
I'm surprised how many people listen to the radio station, because I thought, geez, I don't. And I probably had 15 people go, hey, you were on the radio. Yeah, so there's a link that you could actually listen to it if you missed it. And so, yeah.
Where's that at?
It was KZYX. I know it's the alphabet, it's backwards alphabet. But yeah, it was really good. She asked me a lot of questions about our bond issue and why we're doing it, what we're going to do, how does it differ from others, and I answered the questions. But I always did it the way I always do. I'm not encourage people to vote yes. I encourage everybody to vote. I want you to know why it was there and make your judgment for yourself.
Do you know which program it was that the interviewer was? Morning, afternoon? Alicia.
Yes. Yep. Yep. I did it's an hour long, but I'm not on there an hour. I'm on there about maybe a half hour. She does a thing on what her program is. She's interviewing all the people who are running for county supervisors.
Yeah.
And she did an interview with the county superintendent about all the other bonds that are out there for other schools. I was the only school superintendent.
What day was it? I just thought it might be nice to direct people.
Monday I did the night, I recorded it, so Tuesday it came, it was Tuesday morning. And there's a link, if you want the link to it. If anybody wants to hear me more, probably not, but the link is there. It was a good interview.
So you have to go to their website to get it?
You can.
Because I'll share it. I'll share it on Facebook so more people know what's going on.
Yeah.
But I gotta know where to find it.
KZWAMS has a jukebox and you can listen to everything.
Yeah.
Everything is. So.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's out there, and again, if you'd like to share it, that would be great. So, yeah.
I think more than anything else, from my perspective, is I'd like to so many people get the word out that there's some misconceptions about the bond that we really need to get dispelled before the March date. We're not trying to get $17 million up front, and we're building in protections so that if the economy crashes, we can keep this at a very low value so it doesn't impact property owners any more than it absolutely has to. If the state and the federal government actually start funding K-12 education like they should, we won't need but a fraction of that money. So what it really boils down to is we built in protections, and we need people to understand that so that they're not voting on this bond based on what happened with the last one. You know? So get the actual information. We've also had two town hall meetings. They weren't well attended, however, we did get a few folks come in and got to dispel some of those issues. But we can do that, Paul.
I've been asked the same question a bunch of times, and I thought that I read and understand, but I just want to know. People who are already paying the last bond, okay, we'll pretend they're paying $100 a year. This bond will add to that 100, right?
Correct.
It's not that this bond is going to pay off the old one and you just have one bill.
That's correct.
So it's kind of like, okay.
They're two totally separate bonds.
Right.
Two totally
But you
separate
pay
line
for
items will be
both.
on your tax bill.
Okay.
And I can explain how it looks.
That seems to be a real misconception too.
10 years ago, when they passed that bond, it was for $43 million. They only spent 14 of it and shut it down. So people are only paying on the 14 part of that, not the 43, only on the 14 part. Before we did this, I looked to see, can we refinance this bond and help our rate to go out? The problem with that refinancing is, it's just like if you refinance a house. We've been paying interest on that 14 million for 10 years. I mean, it took about that much principal off. So we essentially have paid all the interest. It doesn't make any sense to refinance principal. There's no benefit to it. So we couldn't refinance what was there. But they are repaying that $14 million that was used. And I tell people, and they go, oh, well, that's too bad. And I said, well, understand, that's Bechtel's music room, that's the high school library, that's the construction lab, that's the welding, that's solar, and that's asphalting at Brookside. Now, there were other stuff that should have got done for that kind of money, but it didn't get done. And when the property values tanked, that revenue to get to $43 million, that rate would have had to skyrocket to bring that money in. For example, we couldn't have asked for $29 million even if we wanted to, because our cash value of our district at $60 per 100 won't generate $29 million. So we couldn't have asked for $29 million even if we wanted to. We would not legally be able to do that because our property values are not at a place where it would generate more than $29 million. In fact, I believe the number was $27 million that our district has the potential at $60 a 100 to generate. So.
Okay, and then I've also been asked why it didn't happen that, you know how in the voter ballot pamphlet thing that they send out, there is a deal that it says in favor of Measure G, and then it's blank for opposed to Measure G.
Right.
Now, I understood two things. One, that when the survey people went around surveying people, that they had a section there that talked about, not really saying these are the minuses, but yes, saying that concerns that they have heard include, all right? And that wasn't on there. And then I figured that it wasn't on there because it costs to put what you want on there, either
No.
there was
That's
no
not why.
cost. Oh.
No, that's not why. It's not a cost. If you're doing an election, anytime you have something on a ballot, whoever puts it on the ballot can put in favor of, because that's why you put it on the ballot.
Right.
If there were a group who were not supportive of it, they're entitled to form their group and put in arguments against. Nobody chose to do that. It's not our job to put arguments against.
The pros and cons.
Right. Our job is to we put out there, and when we put it out there, you'll notice that it's voted, it's not saying vote yes. It's telling you why we put it on the measure, on the ballot. If somebody wants to say why it shouldn't be on there, they would have needed to write that and submit it. But that was done basically, and how it works is if two people wanted to put something on it, if you're the first group in, you get yours. Okay?
Yeah.
So there was no group negative that submitted anything for arguments against. So it's truly just, and it's only for the voter to inform the voter. It's an informational thing. It allows people to, you'll see like proposal, is it 13, Prop 13?
Yeah, there's a Prop 13.
Prop 13 has a pro and a con. And it has that because there was a significant no group who said that if you put that on the ballot, we're going to put this as reasons not to. We did not have that group doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the group's own
Well,
kind of failure to do so.
well, not failure.
Maybe
They would have to
misunderstanding.
group together and have a group because we had to put together a vote yes committee and raise our own funds to get our signs and do that stuff. And so that's all been done. That's all legal document with the county. And so that's done. The argument in favor of actually comes from the district because we put it on the ballot.
Oh, okay. Because that's, I thought that it was.
Yeah, it comes from us. It actually comes from Alex and I and Trina and Jendi helping us to craft that in, because you only get so many words.
Yeah.
And so we put that on there, and we're the ones who put it on the ballot.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
Anything further? We have a WASC accreditation report.
Yes. I want you to look at the high school WASC accreditation report. We got what I consider to be the gold star 2 thumbs up for the high school. When they came a few years ago, we were all in the process. You know, Robert's last year, we were talking about transitioning to trimesters, and Mike's first year, we were putting that all in place. Now we're up and running and functioning really well. The same person who came a few years ago came and did this one. So he had a apples to apples comparison. And he was very complimentary. The staff's doing a great job, the schedule's in place, the structure's in place, and we got the best review you can get. And I'm really pleased about that. It's markedly different and going in the right direction. All our numbers are trending really well at the high school. Number of students on honor roll, graduation rates, all those things.
Cool. That's very good. Congratulations.
Great. To the high school. Yep.
We are.
David leave already?
Yeah, he had something come up.
No problem.
We have WTA comments are next.
Okay, well, you've already heard about the high school, what's happening there. The middle school recently had their winter band concert that went very well. We also have science fair going on right now, today and tomorrow. The exhibit is open at the community center. And a little bit of spring fever and field trips happening at all the sites as far as I can tell. So
Very nice.
Thanks.
Dan, CSEA?
It's been kind of quiet except when the sun came out.
Yeah.
It makes the grass grow and everybody's busy trying to doll everything up for sports right now. So hopefully we can get that looking really good. Things have been pretty calm in the front.
It's good.
We'll start, board comments, let's start with
Spencer.
All right. So basically sports are changing right now, wrapping up whole winter sports, basketball season's coming over, moving into tennis, swimming, what else do we have? Track, softball, baseball, golf, can't forget about golf. The one thing that I have about the spring season personally, as someone who does track, last year it rained about once a week during our track season, and it takes our track about 6 days to dry out, so we didn't get to practice for the entirety of the season. We had 2 meets. One was championships, both in St. Helena, at the end of the year. So that kind of sucked. Basically our season was non-existent until the last 2 weeks. But I don't know, there's not much you can do about that besides getting an all-weather track, but you know.
We've looked at an all-weather track a couple different times over the years.
Easier said than done.
Yes.
For sure. And I understand that, I'm just, that's out there. Acton went to Decathlon, went to our regional competition, did very well. I know last year we went to Lake County and participated. There was 3 schools. It was us, Upper Lake, and I think Clear Lake. And we pretty much swept everything, took first out of the 3. This year there's about 15 other teams down in, we were in the North Bay section of somewhere in more South California. And so we still ended up getting 2nd overall team score and super quick score, and ended up coming home with a lot of medals. I had 2.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And we actually compared our scores to South Bay scores as well. We would have gotten first there also. So that was kind of cool, and we'll be moving on to state soon. But yeah, basically everything's going cool. I asked ASB if they wanted me to say anything to you guys. I didn't have anything, so that's all I got.
Thanks.
I shamed Spencer into going into Academica when I told him about having senioritis. And he stepped up to the plate nicely, as he always does.
Jeannie?
Yeah, I went to stopped by the science fair today. I always love the science fair. It's was lots of projects, and the room was full, and there were parents wandering around and people from the community, and then a class came in. I'm not sure where the class was from, but they were very enthusiastic, running from project to project to project. Oh, I know that for all. And anyway, it was fun. And so in January, I went to a 2-day institute for new and first-term board members put on by the California School Boards Association. And the first morning session was on effective governance. And the first day, the afternoon session was on school finance. And then the second day, the morning session was on student learning. And the afternoon session was on human resources. And I got a lot out of attending, and I really appreciate, I'm glad I went. So anyway, and then I continued to do my volunteer work both at Brookside and Blosser. And there's something else I wanted to say too. Skipping my mind, but if I remember, I'll stick my nose in. So.
Pay attention. I am sorry that Sanhedrin left already, because it's really fun to be involved in their stuff, and especially when I've known some of their students for a long while. And so congratulations, and that was really fun. I went to my very first crab feed the other day, whenever that was, and that was a really interesting event that I had no idea what those people did, but I do now. And they earned thousands of dollars for FFA, which was a truly amazing thing for me to notice. They have a jar in the middle of your table and they say, put your 20s in, you know, and you go, good God. But you do, because these kids are running all around asking you if you want more crab or whatever you want, you know. But they made thousands that night, and they had silent auctions, and anyway, the whole thing was really done very smoothly and really well, and it was a big deal. They also made thousands of dollars for the Rotary, and they give out their scholarships every year, and they donated, I don't know how much, but it was in the thousands, also to the Senior Center, a place I'm well acquainted with. So it was something I had just, if you get an opportunity, it's not that expensive. My brother lives between Vallejo and Napa, and they do their city council always sets up a big crab feed, cost them $125 a night, and this one was $50, and the food and the company and the quality and everything are the same, so you could save yourself a couple of hours and do this. It's a big deal. You should go if you can. Mostly everything else has been quiet and good. I've been to Bechtel a couple of times, and but that was mostly to see a part of the concert for about 5 minutes and to go to a meeting and to learn about a plan they had for, it's some kind of little extra counseling or something, and they have a PE program that's real attentive to the students that have issues, and so that was a good thing for me to learn all about. That's something I didn't think happened, and it does, and so that's a good deal too. And that's about all. I know I had one other thing, but it's not on this paper.
Can I jump in? I remember what I was going to say, Paul. So I'm in the Rotary Club. I'm on the Rotary Board, and the Rotary Board, two of our Rotary meetings in the last month have been related to schools. Mark came and talked to the Rotary Club about Measure G. And then we also had Suzanne Kidwell brought the Robotics Club and talked to the Rotary Club about the Robotics Club. And then we had the crab feed that raised $10,000. $5,000 of it goes to the Senior Center, and $5,000 of it goes into the Rotary Scholarship Fund, because we usually are able to fund at least $10,000 scholarships for graduating seniors in the Willits Unified School District, including the charter school. And then we we made a donation to the Academic Decathlon towards their travel expenses of $750. And then we also provided the money for the Robotics Club to buy 2 robotics kits. And Rotary does a lot for kids in this community. In a week or two, we're going to be distributing dictionaries to the 3rd graders. So, which we do every year. So, anyway, thanks for the reminder. I was going to talk about Rotary.
You did good.
And I'll have to thank the Rotary, because I also coach the swimming team, the Otters here in town. The Rotary has donated a couple of times this year. I appreciate that so much. You know, sitting here and watching the kids present, and then our graduates, when I was a full-time administrator, the summers seemed so dry because you're working on paperwork and purchase orders, and when I was an area superintendent, you're working on planning, and there's meeting after meeting after meeting, really dry. And you get to the point, well, I got to the point where I'm like, why do I do this? And then the first day of school, those kids would come in, I'm like, oh, okay, this is why I do it. And seeing the kids tonight reminded me of this is why we do this. And then you're like, okay, this is it. This is why we do it. So it was very exciting. I had an opportunity to be on a mock interview for our academic decathlon competitors. In fact, I got to interview this young man, and it was very exciting to see the quality of children that we were, or students or men that we're sending out into the world. Because when they were interviewing, I was thinking, you know, most of these kids interview better than I would. I mean, they were so well put together in the way they spoke. But more than that, because I was doing the interview, I was able to delve a little bit deeper into who they were and why they were doing that. And I asked a few questions of this young man that went above and beyond. But what I found is that this program, the Academic Decathlon, it is changing lives. So kids that were not necessarily on the best track that they could be on, all of a sudden they're on a college track. All of a sudden their goals are way up here. But not only that, they could verbally go in and compete for those positions, those jobs. It is changing life. And one thing I've learned about any program, it goes back to the teachers, the educators that are supporting that program. And I know Mary Colvick is doing an excellent job. And so when I heard they went out competing against all these schools, much larger schools, and they got second, I was not surprised. I'm saying, you know, it was Mary Colvick's work, these kids willing to put in the work, and I guess we have 3 people going on the state?
9.
9.
3 from each division.
Oh, 3 from each division. So we have 9 people going to state. It's absolutely amazing, but it was very much quality. And the last thing I want to say, I talked to Bob Colvig. They just started the Bob Colvig wrestling tournament, the first annual, and I was not able to attend that because I was actually at a Odyssey of the Mind practice meet, so to speak, and so I was there, and I was helping judge that. But again, you got to see these kids doing wonderful things, and we have wonderful children, we have wonderful students, we have wonderful staff here that are doing amazing things, and it just makes me so proud to be a board member of this school district. So thank you.
Mr. Gold.
I think the Willits community should really be proud of how our academic decathlon team has performed at the regional level. We should also compliment the Willits High School varsity wrestling team. This past Saturday, they took the North Coast Section Championship in the dual meet wrestling. They had wins over St. Patrick's of Vallejo and Justin Siena of Napa, and then nearby Clear Lake to win the championship. And so when we see our teams, either athletic or academic, go on to the regional level and perform at the highest level, it's truly rewarding for us here in Willits. So I'd like to compliment all the work that everybody's been doing involved with those activities.
The problem with going last is everybody's hit a lot of them, but science fair was great. Spencer, what is the topic this year for Academic?
The technical name is In Sickness and in Health, which could mean anything, but basically there's all the different sections. The literature section talks about short works based on like mortality and essays people have written about their sicknesses. And then our large selection is we're reading the novel Frankenstein, the original version, not the cartoony stuff that they're making these days. But and then all the music section is all music about like mortality and people writing songs about death and diseases, and then the science section is the study of cancer cells and the biology of those sort of sicknesses.
If you've never been to Acadeca, it is always a different topic every year. So it's not something I got it, next year we're just going to do the same thing. It is completely different, and you have to prepare from scratch. And it's very different, it's really interesting. The super quiz is really quite something. I judge at the super quiz, I'm like, wow, okay, you gotta really know, you gotta be really good to know this question. And so it's really high level good stuff. I'll go through a couple things. We got our playground for Brookside. The equipment came in. Stan Cooley's going to do our site work for us. He's volunteered to do that. We're gonna fix the site, drop the pipes, and then have a community put together day. It should be sometime in early March. We think we have found a vendor to put in the drinking fountains. We were 0-4 with vendors who were willing to come up and do it. We think we found one. I'll give you an example of the usage. The one at the high school that Dan put in recently already has about 5,000 bottle fills on it.
It tracks them?
Yes.
That's cool.
It's a little number reader on it.
Tells you how many you saved for the planet.
Yeah. I mean, literally, those are plastic bottles of water. And so our goal is to get plastic bottle free. When we put all these in, we should be pretty close to that. Kitchen equipment. If I do one more grant, Trina's probably going to assassinate me. But we did a grant for some really deluxe equipment for our cafeterias. A refrigerated salad bar, another heated salad bar. There's a product called a kettle cooker that Alex and I saw when we went over to Kelseyville. And it's a 60-gallon kettle cooker. You can cook 60 gallons of stuff in. That is a lot of soup.
It's the big witch's cauldron.
And it's $18,000, just that piece of equipment. And so we were granted $42,000 to get some equipment. And we have another small grant that we got Cambro units that we can move the food around, that you can literally heat the food up, roll it over to a building and plug it in and keep it warm. So we've got a lot of nice equipment. Our process is fairly simple. We're almost through our audit. We're on our very last piece. When that meets, we have to meet with food service. I have to meet with them. We have to figure out what we're going to do to bring our expenses down. And part of it is good equipment, able to move stuff, and we've been out working to get that in place before we know that's part of the program. And so that's one of the things that Trina and I have spent a lot of time on is grant stuff. And you know, it's painful. It'd be a lot easier to have a bunch of money, but winter sports are almost done. The boys basketball and girls basketball play their last game tomorrow night. The boys are at Fort Bragg and the girls are home for their senior night for the girls. Wrestling is still moving on. I just want to highlight a couple clubs of things that are going on. Tessa's doing a great club with drama with her kids, and it's one of those experiences where we know when they leave school they're going to have to speak in front of people, interview, talk in front of people, do all those things. There's no better program than drama to do that, because they can learn some lines, they can be somebody else, and it really teaches them some great skills. The high school is putting on their first play, You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown, in April. And so we have stuff back in the theater again. We have Odyssey of the Mind going on at Sherwood. And so those are opportunities for students to be in clubs. So one of the things that really helped was help incentivize the teachers instead of just begging them to volunteer all the time. That really is part of what we need to do to get to the next level. And it's worked really well. School farm. The school farm will have its grand opening within a month. You will be more than surprised when you see the school farm. You will be astounded when you see the school farm. It has been resurrected into, there's no doubt, I can't imagine anybody around us who has a better student farm than we have right now.
Buy a tri-tip ticket and they can see it when they drive through to get it, right, Mr. Rushburn? The tri-tip dinner will be served there.
It comes from tons of volunteers. It comes from a huge donation from someone who passed away. It comes from our local contractors doing just jobs for the cost of materials, and students doing work. It really is a total joint effort. Our alumni FFA, all of those people are putting time and effort in, and you will really be astounded when you go to see the school farm. And it's going to be one of those things that, you know, this is a project that is unique, because farms are not my specialty. I'm from Cleveland. The reality is, I love what they do. They put a great project together, and it's really a good site. I happen to sit on the hospital board here, and the hospital is, Adventist Health is really experiencing some issues because they're a major group, and some of the other hospitals aren't performing super well. There's a term I want to make sure you know, it's called EBITDA. EBITDA is how the hospital determines their profitability. Because they're a hospital and a nonprofit, they still have receive revenue, spend revenue, how much is left over. They call that term EBITDA. Howard Hospital is performing as well as almost any hospital in their group. However, it's one of the smaller hospitals in their group. And so they're in the process of looking at taking Fort Bragg and bringing it into the Adventist Health group. And so Ukiah and Willits have already joined together, and Fort Bragg probably will be soon thereafter be part of this group. And the hospital is a very, very impressive group of people to meet with and work with. They hire great people, they're really sharp, they have an absolutely beautiful facility. I can't imagine a town our size that has a nicer hospital. I don't even know if that's possible. And so I feel very fortunate to go out there and meet with them. They're very supportive of the school, and they're very supportive of community things in general. So I just want to put in a plug for the hospital that it does a great job. And there'll be some changes where they're bringing stuff on that are going to make it even better. March 17th, I hate to announce this, that is no longer a day off. We had a snow day, so we are on school on March 17th. Spencer, I just want to say about the track, it's ironic that you talk about it because Dan and I and Terry had this conversation today about the track, and we do need to put dust on that track, but it's super expensive to get. Normally the Garmins get it for us, and they have to go way past Clear Lake Oaks to get it, and it's really expensive to get put down, but we definitely need more dust. It would help with that water problem tremendously. Because now when we drag, we're basically dragging on hard pan.
Right.
There's no soft underneath. And so hopefully that's something we can work on.
I just want to make a correction. The snow day that we're making up is not March 17th, it's March 20th. If
Is
you're
it the
putting it
20th?
in the paper.
Oh, sorry about
That changes everything.
whatever the snow day was, it's not there anymore. Sorry about that. Okay.
Jen, question, did you get a chance to see the track today?
I have not yet today, no.
Take a look in the morning.
We'll do.
It's really good. We got it
Yep. They put a lot of time in today, but
the last couple of days.
yeah.
Sounds good.
Looks good.
I'd like to offer my congratulations to all the sports teams that have been doing well. Akadaka, like the rest of the board, I think the presentations by the Sanhedrin School students and the graduations, that's why we're here. We're trying to make things better for all these young folks to move on. As far as in terms of involvement, my wife's welding classes were shut down for, I think, 4 days, because they were doing some additional work down there. I had a contractor come in and do some work in there that basically shut down the welding portion of it. So I got suckered into coming in and helping her for about 4 days, helping her teach her kids basic electrical wiring. So that was kind of fun. So that was all day for 4 days. That was an interesting experience. It's been a long time since I've spent anywhere near that kind of amount of time. I usually spend a fair amount of time in the woodshop side of things, but she caught me coming in there and had a great time. I have one detail I want to pass on here, and I'm going to read this. Dear CSEA, on behalf of Trustee Nunez and the Willits Unified School Board of Trustees, I offer this apology to the CSEA leadership and its members. Trustee Nunez's actions on September 10th were perceived to be outside board policy. Trustee Nunez has apologized for her actions and expressed regret for any misunderstandings that her actions caused. She and the board inclusive of having received additional training to prevent similar incidents in the future. Thank you, respectfully, Alex Bolts, President, Willits Unified School District. So,
I have a small handout from the Treasury Department.
okay.
I won't give you one, I don't think I can.
We can share, Spencer.
I just don't know.
Thank you.
Okay, thank
The CSEA and myself understand and acknowledge that the Willits Unified School District Board as a whole is not responsible for the issues at hand, but it is the actions of one rogue member of the board that has caused this issue to be brought upon the board. The idea that these issues were perceived to be outside board policy is not true. This issue is outside board policy. If we take into account that this individual board member was a past president of the WTA, attended many board meetings over the years, has had prior litigation, cease and desist orders from the CSEA, the state CSEA, and has made it no secret about her distaste for certain employees of the Willits Unified School District, it is hard to believe that this is a, oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that moment. The handout I supply has some bullet points from the school board policies. And moving forward from this point, not having to revisit any of these issues in the future is the goal of the CSEA. And the CSEA and myself would like to thank the board for working with the superintendent and the CSEA to resolve this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan. So we're done with comments and so forth. We can move forward to the public comments on the consent agenda. Hearing none, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll vote to approve the consent agenda.
I second.
2 seconds, great. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Fire away.
The employee status change, how long did that, when did that employee start to work for the district? Has that been since before August, like last year? Or was it just this year?
I think it's just this year, pretty sure. I really don't know the answer to that. I'm getting old and dates blend together and years blend together,
I know that
but
feeling, yeah.
they are not a long-term employee.
Okay. Okay, and then I just had a few questions about some of the school safety plans. Most of them, I'm aware that they're pretty similar year after year, you know, but.
They're required to be updated annually.
Right, and those were kind of some of my questions. I have a question that I hope. I learned a number of years ago at a board meeting that there would be a designated person who would be allowed to carry an arm that only the superintendent would know about, a firearm.
That's not under the law, that's not allowed now.
Okay, because that's what I also recently
I was like,
learned.
really?
Well, it did happen right when you started, and
Well, that's not entirely true.
was it before that law was passed? Whatever, there was an issue, and I was just curious if.
State law at the time was, in order for someone to carry a weapon on school grounds, they had to either get approval from the board, or the board could abdicate that approval to the superintendent, and the superintendent could monitor that.
Right.
Since then, state law's changed, and now it's not.
Okay, that was the part that I had recently learned
Just
about.
went to Montana there for a minute thinking, oh.
Sorry, no, I know. And I meant to ask you earlier because I wasn't exactly certain, but it was publicly brought out in the beginning, so I just figured if anybody else remembered it, that at least now it's publicly cleared up, and I appreciated that a lot. And then I had just a couple of concerns about it. Well, one says that the police department or law enforcement will be checking all of these policies, but most of them say pending. So does pending, a couple of them are just one. So does pending mean that it happens within a month or two? Or does pending mean that you know, they just get a copy.
We have to beg them for their participation.
Okay, that's sort of what I wonder.
Let
I'm
me put
thinking
it
they're
this way.
busy, but I just,
If we had our SRO officer, if the city could find some officers to fully staff, this would have already been cleared. Because that's one of the things that Ryan was doing as our SRO, was reviewing these plans.
well, I was gonna sort of ask if he's the one that did that, but. okay.
Well, Ryan unfortunately has been doing 12-hour shifts for the city for quite some time right now.
Yeah.
Is not able to be our SRO. Otherwise, the pending would not be there.
Yeah, okay, okay, that's kind of where I was going. And I just wondered at maybe some future board meeting, there's a lot being said about how, you know, lessons are given on, you know, improving attendance and improving bullying issues and improving a lot of the things that are normal concerns, you know. And so I just wondered if maybe sometime we couldn't get like a little, an example or something of a lesson, because what it says is, and I know I used to fill out the form that said, okay, yeah, I gave this lesson on this day and it came out of this book, you know. But I wondered if there was something that could maybe make that a little more concrete nowadays. No big deal, just a little 2-minute showing. We do this, it works like this, and we're done. The district used to have a special person that came in and gave those lessons. You know? But anyway, and then how you can kind of judge the results changing, other than just, you know, I mean, it shows at one school, well, the suspensions are down, you know, and things like that. But at the others, it sort of doesn't make it clear, other than teacher judgment and turning in a log. And I just wondered if there was, because that's exactly what it said last year, you know,
Well,
I just was looking for something.
Just to let you know, there is a group, and I always get the acronyms, that MTSS, is that the name of the group?
Yes.
Yeah. There's an MTSS group, and I don't know what the acronym is, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The acronym is really about that. It's about attendance and culture and climate and things they're doing. They will have that report for K-5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
they will
sometime
have
if that-
detailed things about what's been done, what are they going to continue to do, what's worked, what's not, and have data.
Oh, okay. And then there were some things about how, I know that Bechtel changed its classroom, you know, alignment, and that seems to be working out really well. But there was also an issue about yard duties and things, and it just said, well, at the more concerned areas, they just beefed up the supervision, which makes sense and is probably happening at, I would imagine, all the schools. But what I'm curious about then is that, are we just putting more people on, or are you, if I used to do this area and you used to do that one, and now this area is a big problem, does another person get a job and come work with me, or do we skip your area and you join me? I mean, I'm kind of...
I'll use Bechtel as an example. We're actually using less people at Bechtel.
Well, that's what I thought.
But the difference is 6th grader at lunch together. It used to be all 300 were at lunch together. So the concerned area was basically everywhere. So now it's down to 6th grade, they have a lunch, then 7th and 8th. And so the supervision is easier. They've also done good things about, this is not a place you can just go hang out at lunchtime. They've kind of restricted where, you know, you can't go down into 6th and 7th grade area when you're on lunch as an 8th grader.
Oh, okay.
And so they're managing what they're supervising, and their numbers are fewer.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of a little divide and conquer strategy.
No, that's good. I also heard, oh, sorry.
Can I also say that we also opened up areas depending on how students use that area. And sometimes we have to shut certain areas because they're not, you know, they're not using it well.
Yeah.
And so just, that's what we mean by focused supervision, is that we close some areas and we open some areas depending on how students, because when it's raining, it's different areas, when it's sunny, it's different areas, that kind of thing. And I also wanted to respond to your other question, which was, what do the lessons look like? So we have a social emotional curriculum, and that's second step curriculum. And you can, you can go online and you can see what the lessons look like. They're all topics that are pertinent to middle school kids, and and it has a format and it has videos and a lot of material. So we're not just making them up.
Oh, okay. Well, I figured that, but I wondered, was everyone kind of in service for a couple hours on how to go through that kind of rapidly?
We've actually had 3 in-service
okay.
Times. I believe each was an hour and a half. And they're webinar in-services from the company itself.
Oh, okay.
And that's taught during our 7th period.
Oh, okay.
So, and everyone is not cycled, rotated through the 15 sessions of the social emotional. So it was something that our counselor put together, and yeah, we also, we met with teachers, make sure that they know what they're doing. We have a little assessment that shows us whether the students are understanding the information. Not necessarily whether they're using it, just whether they're understanding.
Well, there's always a difference between what you can internalize.
So that's why we
and
rely
what
on
you
things
can-
like suspension numbers and things like that.
Oh, okay, and then I sort of was curious, I heard that at the schools during the recesses, there is a little more emphasis or kind of a push for people to do activities as opposed to just hang out. I know that used to happen at Blosser for a long while. I imagine it still sort of does. And I heard that it was happening at Bechtel.
Yeah, we do.
Does that work pretty well?
3-on-3 kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And you have a pretty good participation?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, your age group concerns me, and I don't think that they like to do anything. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Okay, thanks. Yeah, thanks.
Anything further, Paula?
No.
Okay, and so we had a motion and a second for the consent agenda. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. We have item C, approval of resolution 2019-20-10 Statewide Health Plan JPA for 2020-21. Back to that again.
Quite simply, this is just renewing to say we're gonna be with Stalo next year.
Okay.
By the way, we did look at other options, and at least financially, this is still the best option. I know Tessa sits on that group as well, so does Dan. They attend as well.
Can I have a motion to approve?
I move we approve.
Seconded by?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion at the board?
So it'll be a roll call?
Yes, it is a roll call. So, Mr. Kovic?
Yeah, yes.
Ms. King?
Yes.
Ms. Nunez?
Yes.
Mark?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Passes. And item number D, approval of resolution 2019-20-11, support of Proposition 13, Health and Safety Bond Act of 2020. I believe this is the
It's the ballot resolution
Ballot
for the state of
resolution.
California.
So I'd like a motion to approve.
I'll move.
And second?
I'll second.
Second. Discussion at the board? I believe everybody should have received this in the ballot information by now. This is that measure that's supposed to generally produce somewhere around $15 billion statewide, hopefully for K through community college for infrastructure needs.
I have considerable problems with Proposition 13, so.
As do many of us. Anything in particular stand out for you, Jeannie?
Well, one thing is that it requires school districts to use union labor on construction projects. And I have nothing against unions at all. But when you live in a small community like Willits, and we say we're going to use local contractors on projects who are pretty much not union members, requiring that we use union members for construction means we'd have to go elsewhere to find people to work on our schools. So that's one thing that stands out for me. So, and there's a few other items, also, a few other issues. I believe it doubles the amount of the amount of percentage that school districts can borrow. And I think that sort of encourages that as a solution rather than the state providing monies for schools. It sort of encourages school districts to borrow. And bonds, they're very complicated, and I can't say that I truly understand all the ins and outs of them, but what I do feel is that usually when you vote on a state bond, you find that what you were given is very simplistic language as to what it stands for, what it's going to do, and then once you get into it, you find out that it's really not exactly what you thought. It's like the highway tax money, and then all of a sudden the state government is saying that they're going to take some of the state tax money and use it for something that wasn't, that the voters didn't understand that it was going to be used for, and for rail instead of highways. So anyway, I personally don't like Proposition 13.
Yeah, the only issue I have with it realistically, possibly, and some of what Jean's already mentioned, is just how the state wants to fund it. And, reservations there, but the truth of the matter is, I see it as an attempt to try and fix some of the ills in our financing of K-12 education. From that standpoint, I don't feel like I have a lot of choices other than to vote for it.
I know CTA spent a lot of time with this.
No, this isn't the one we're doing.
No, this is separate.
They started with this one and then they backed off it, and now they're trying to get one on the November ballot.
Yours is
It's schools and communities first.
Fair
Yeah,
and full
we're still
funding.
collecting
Fair and full funding
petitions
one.
for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the one that we're supporting is written a lot different.
Is there a number on that one, Dawn?
No, because it's not on the ballot yet. We're still, we have till March, end of March.
Petitions you can sign.
And the concern with the borrowing is the fact that it's a low threshold right now of money you can actually borrow. If you double that, their concern, the people who are concerned, is that all of these districts are gonna run out and go borrow $2 or $3 million, because that's the 40% you need for the 60% the state's going to give you. So it would increase a lot of indebtedness. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Not necessarily.
There are times you have to borrow to fix that. You borrow money when you buy a house unless you have an awful lot of money. So borrowing is not a bad thing. And so the people who are concerned that every district got their threshold basically tripled for their ability to borrow. But in our case, you have to look at the numbers. Does it make sense?
Regardless, we have to find a way to be fiscally responsible. And if we borrow money, we have to pay that back. It comes it comes out of the general fund somewhere. And the reality of it is, our only real sources of revenue are from the state or the federal government. And it doesn't make a lot of sense that we go borrow money outside of that, only to have to pay it back with state and federal funds. It's just, why not just have the state and federal give us the money they're going to give us anyway, so we can do what we need to do. So, in any case, any further discussion on the resolution 2019-20-11? I'm sure we all got opinions, but unfortunately, they are what they are. So we'll call for the vote. And Jeannie?
I vote no, because when I go to vote at the polls, I won't be voting in favor of Proposition 13. I think it's dishonest for me to say I'm supporting it on the board, so I'm not.
What did I do?
Paula?
I vote no also. I'm so impressed that we agree.
Ms. Chavez?
I vote aye. It's just the conditions of our district. It's another venue that we can tap if needed.
I'm going to vote aye as well on the resolution. Mr. Pullman?
Yes.
Aye, and it carries 3-2. Item E, approval of full paid meal prices for food services. And
Well, this is something we found out that, I believe, Trina, annually we're supposed to do this, aren't we?
Correct.
Yeah. that we're supposed to have adult prices. By the way, they've not changed in years and years. So the prices there are exactly what they were 4 or 5 years ago. But we're just supposed to approve adult prices annually for when somebody eats in the cafeteria.
And so they'll be posted in the cafeteria, all cafeterias that serve?
Yeah, I don't know if they get posted. Maybe they do. Is that part of the
In the
requirement?
past, Brookside had a posting in their
I
kitchen,
don't,
but
I'm
not
it's
on
on the
the
calendar at our school.
It's
It's
what?
on the calendar at our school.
The monthly.
Monthly.
Oh,
or
okay.
adult.
They do?
It just says adult price
Mhm.
to
Oh,
me,
okay.
because the kids are free, so the adult price is on there.
Okay.
This comes out of a board policy that we're basically forced on us by the state. And it comes, the situation boils down to is the state and federal government reimburses for the vast majority of the free meal prices for the kids. The rules are, we can't provide free meals or even reduced price meals to the general public or our own staff. And this is a tool basically to show that we don't provide free meals or reduce food prices to other than kids. So.
We negotiated with CTA of, you get a free lunch every day. We literally, which is, by the way, not an odd thing. Sometimes districts do that. We would have to do an accounting for that and take district funds and put it into the food service, saying there were X amount of teacher meals that were paid for.
So, motion to approve?
I move we approve.
Seconded by,
I'll second.
okay. Any further discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Item F, out-of-state travel.
Nancy Runberg is going to a conference in Reno. And we have a board policy on when you go out of state, which is somewhat ironic because it's way cheaper to go to Reno than Southern California, but, and much closer, by the way.
So does she come back and give a report, or just an administrators meeting, she gives a report, or what happens with that knowledge?
It depends on the conference they go to. If they go to a conference that's pertinent to their age or EL or whatever, they work within the group they were going to the conference for. So for example, Kelly went to one recently in Southern California, and it was all about special ed and compliance. And so when she has her special ed staff meeting, that's what it's about. And so I'm assuming when they go to a conference, they bring something of value back with it, and they share that with their group. I mean, they also share with me what they did, was it valuable, was it not? Because if they're not here or don't go next year and somebody else wants to go, I'd kind of like to know, was it valuable or not?
Okay, I understood this one was on management or something, wasn't it? I thought maybe I misread it. But that's why I was curious. I thought I couldn't.
I'm sorry, some do just improve your practice, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't remember what it was.
It's AXA.
Oh, is that?
Oh, it's AXA.
It's the AXA Region 4, or Region 4 regions. It's a conference that they have. And there is a lot of workshops about improving your practice as an administrator.
So it's mostly things that, I mean, it's, well, I guess it doesn't matter. Okay.
I mean, honestly, whether you go to Reno or San Francisco,
It's gonna cost, yeah, I can imagine $1,100.
probably cheaper to go to Reno than San Francisco. So, I mean, it's kind of I realize if we were sending her to Boston or something, that would
Yeah, it'd be a little more. Okay, well, is the Title I professional development money coming from, it's not really coming from the general fund or anything?
That's
Oh, okay. Yeah. Their site council has to go on it too, don't they? Isn't that a part of what goes on?
I don't believe so, not by policy.
No, it'll just be included in their single plan in their, single plan,
Professional development.
yeah, professional
Oh,
development.
okay. Okay. All right, thanks.
We have a motion to approve.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Motion and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item G, approval of Form J-13A, allowance of attendance due to emergency conditions, October 2019.
This is our application for our power shut-off days. Pretty standard. Everybody who was affected by it has done it. So every district around us.
A motion to approve?
I'll move that we approve that.
I second.
And seconded. Any further discussion?
So what happens to the people that work that day anyway? I mean, there
All
were
of
some
those people
12-month
either-
employees.
Yeah, either they got paid extra or they got an additional.
Oh, it's like the fire thing then
Yeah.
from the, oh, okay.
And honestly, when we have planned power outage offs like that, it's for us in maintenance and custodial, it's like a free day.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody in the classrooms. We can go in and actually literally go into any room, any place and get stuff done.
Yeah, I heard a lot of things.
We got
really got cleaned up.
undone.
Yeah.
Yeah, the custodial maintenance staff killed it on those
Yeah,
days.
that's
I
what
mean,
I
we
heard.
got a ton done.
Well, that was good. Oh, okay.
Any further discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries. Approval of district calendars 2021, 2022, and 2023.
So I work with CSEA, WTA, my bean counter Linda, and her assistant bean counter who checks on her is Trina. So they count the days and the hours and make sure we're all good on everything. And so they put together 3 calendars. I'm not super vested in calendar because I'm here regardless of what it is. And they put a calendar together that they were comfortable with, so we're going to go with those 3. Everything is in there with parent-teacher conferences, vacations, all of those things. The only thing that's not reflected in there that will be is minimum day. My intent with minimum day is we're transitioning a little bit in buses right now with some routes, but I believe we can bus K-8 and do a minimum K-8 day and do a high school regular day. And the reason for that is the high school needs less minimum days. For example, there's only 1 geometry teacher. I mean, they don't really have to have a department meeting for that. They really need them for a math department meeting, and Mike uses them for staff meetings. But they also have the highest minute requirements of any of the buildings. They have more minutes required than any of the other buildings. So if we put in all the minimum days for them, they're short on minutes. And so we would do what we had to do last year. We had to cut about 5 minimum days out to make that. It shouldn't have to be a district thing. I use this analogy all the time. Kindergarten is different than calculus. And sometimes we have to do some things differently. This is one of those examples. The high school also has prep time every day, which is not the case K-5. And so there are differences between the buildings and levels. The high school is going to do some minimum days on things like coming up at the end of February, we end the trimester. And so that Thursday, they'll be done at 1:30 like a minimum day. And on Friday, they're actually going to be done at 11:30 because that's when the exams are over. So the high school really has a different schedule and different time requirements and different needs. And the transportation people have been really good about, okay, I said, what will we do if we did this? Can the middle school get picked up, have them run their runs, and get back to the high school by 3 o'clock? Yes, we can do that. Then the drivers worked out, well, driver A and B are getting more time than driver C and D. And so they worked it out with, we pay them for taking care of their buses and cleaning their buses. So they're going to forego their cleaning of the bus a couple times when we do that to even it out. So the next time we meet, I will have a full calendar with minimum days and everything spelled out. But the intent is to try and be K-8. We'll still have usually the 2nd and 4th Tuesday, the high school. So half of them will be about the same. But the only other ones the high school would have is when they end trimesters. So, I'm just trying to separate, the high school is very different than the other buildings. And we need to, one size doesn't always fit all.
There was some public concern over the last year's, when we made the changes last year. We pretty much got past that.
Yeah, well, we'll get way past it because K-8's gonna basically have them every Tuesday. So there's no inconsistency at all. The high school will predominantly be second and fourth, with the exception of when you end trimesters. And without going into bitter detail, generally speaking, before we go on a holiday break, the minimum day is usually the Friday instead of the Tuesday.
Right.
Okay, and I'll reference that in the calendar as well. And so what you'll see is a capital M, which means it's a minimum day for the high school, a smaller M, that's a K-8 minimum day. So one day may have a big M/small M. One may just have a minimum small M on it, but I have them all laid out.
So, I just want to say that I'm really appreciative of the fact that the first week of school is not a full week. I think it's really hard to, after a vacation, summer vacation, to start off with a full week of school, so.
Yeah, and I'm not going to take credit for that. That's WTA's calendar. As I said, I'm totally fine with that. We need to get 180 days in, and they put them together in a format that worked. We only had 2 minor days we had to flip around and got it done.
I had just a couple of questions about this also. This year, the spring break happens before Easter. Okay, and so next year and the year after and the year after, does that happen again and again? Or is it happening the week after Easter? It used to happen after Easter, it used to happen before, it even happened a couple of times that had nothing to do with Easter. But I'm real curious if there's a...
Easter is a moving target.
It is.
It's not like Christmas, it's always the 25th of December.
Yeah, no.
It's a moving target, and because it's a moving target, what most schools do is, if Easter's really late, man, you don't want to wait till the 3rd week of April to do spring break. That would be brutal. And so, what most districts do is pick a week that traditionally is spring break. And we're pretty much hooked on the first full week of April. Which is very common, by the way. Some people do the last week of March, first week of April, or the 2nd week of April.
I can give you dates if you need dates.
Yeah, and sort of, I was just curious, the last 2 calendars are the 2nd full week. And the first one, I guess, because Easter happened on the 11th, that, you know, it just...
Yeah.
2021 is April 4th.
Okay.
2022 is April 17th. And 2023 is April 9th.
It's a moving target.
Yeah.
And so, basically, WTA looked at it, I'm sure as I would have, and just said, why don't our families just plan on the first week of April being spring break? And we'll manipulate that as we go.
Yeah, I'm sure if word gets out enough. The issue people ran into a number of years ago was that people say, I'm going to do this the week after Easter, the week before Easter, and then they just used Easter as their target for setting up a vacation or doing whatever you're going to do. And if you're going to set it up to a certain time, that's good, just so long as if everybody knows what's happening. That was the concern.
I don't think it's tied to Easter anymore, because that's a Christian holiday, so.
Well, and that's
it's
fine
spring
too.
break,
I don't,
not-
yeah,
nothing
I don't
to do with
mean,
Easter anymore.
excuse me, it's spring breaks. But
Well,
I was just curious if...
That's part of the reason I want to put 3 years out in calendar.
Yeah.
So everybody knows, you don't have to go fishing for when it is. Yes, sir.
Does it become an attendance issue? Because if you have families,
For Easter.
you know, picking days around that holiday, how would that affect?
Maybe one
that day?
Independence Day. If you
There's
wanna
still
leave for a
Christians in the
Yeah,
world.
true.
I don't know if it's going to impact attendance. I'm probably less concerned about that than I am the day after Halloween, which doesn't impact us next year because it happens to be a Sunday. But the following year it's a Monday, then a Tuesday. And I said that when we talked about calendar, that we have to look at that second year out. If there's a ton of people not here on that, we may have to look at that day differently. And so, you know, I think the calendar, the most important thing is to get it out there a long way so people can see what it is. And I think they'll adjust their vacations accordingly. But the truth is, if somebody's going to be gone on Easter, the parent's in charge of attendance, so.
Still, there wasn't much concern over the Friday week, the February week. I noticed the last couple of years it's a 4-day thing, which, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Well,
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, my only calendar hang up with the February week is that it means school goes one more week longer in June. And 60+% of our rooms are not air conditioned. It gets hot.
Yeah.
And that moves graduation back. It does a lot of stuff that we need to be done earlier.
Well, this is, next year looks like one of the first years in a long time that we didn't start in the teens in August. That's kind of interesting. And then my last question was just that there was a comment you made last time, I'm pretty sure, that there might be a survey going out to families to ask about the short Tuesdays.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Did that happen?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to do that before we make a change. Because literally, in March, we could make the change right away.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have to wait till next year.
Okay.
And if I'm going to do that, I'm not just going to do spontaneous combustion. Oh, by the way, I'm going to send out a survey to parents and say, we can do this. Do you want to start minimum Tuesdays in March every week? We can do that. And we'll see. I'm hoping the vast majority of people are in favor of that. If it's 50-50 or less than 50-50, no, of doing it right away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I want the teachers to have those.
Our perspective is it's going to be very well received by both parents and teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would guess it will be. I'm not going to survey the high school because the high school calendar isn't going to change at all.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
This is the time where we can comment on the calendar, or? Sure. When I was in high school, when we had Tuesdays every Tuesday, how did it work where we had enough hours in the schedule? Did the hours change for what requirements are since '98 and now?
I don't know.
I don't understand the amount of hours for Tuesdays aren't enough for high schoolers when they have been for the last 20 years.
One of two things had to change. Either the number of hours or the number of days or the length of the school day. If any of those change, it impacts that. The high school is actually controlled by minutes, not by, they have 180 days they have to meet, but every day doesn't have to be the same length of time. So the state rule is 180 days. The high school has a very high minute requirement. Off the top of my head, it's something like 54,000 minutes or something that they have to meet. And if they don't, we lose ADA on that percentage.
I just wonder where it's changed, because it was 8:10 to 3:10.
I think the high school got out at 3:20 before.
It was 3:10 or 3:20, and
It was
they started at
3:10 when I was in high school.
They started at 8:10 or 8:15.
And that's the difference, they're getting out now at 3.
But they start at 8 or 7:55.
8.
They start at 8:15 minutes or 10 minutes earlier, but yet they're getting out. Like when I went to school, we started at 8:10 or 8:15, and we got it at 3:15 or 3:20. And so I didn't know, why is it so different to not be able to have Tuesdays for the high school and have it across the board for parents? Having it, I will have a son at high school next year, and I'm like, how am I going to keep track? Because I don't have to pick him up. We live in town. And he's either going to walk in the rain. I have to remember, it's not this Tuesday. It's hard enough this year to remember it's not this Tuesday, it's next Tuesday. No, it's the last 2 of the month. It's a lot to remember with everything, with practices and tutoring, and I don't know, it's just an extra thing when it's consistent with K-8, but why is it so different for the whole district?
Either the high school is going to have to increase the length of their day, or they're going to have to do something to gain instructional minutes back.
by 10 minutes? That's what I'd like to know is how many minutes are we talking?
I'd have to sit down and do the math. but
Okay.
It might be 10 minutes, because 10 minutes over 180 days is a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to sit down and discuss it if it means we're talking 10 minutes versus not having any Tuesdays for the whole year. That's what, I mean.
As a
that's what we're talking
WTA
about.
group, I would discuss it first with the high school
That-
teachers.
Okay, well, that would be
Because-
great. I would like it to be
because-
looked into.
Yeah.
Like, instead of just saying, okay, we're not doing Tuesdays for the high school because of.
They're getting 2 a month.
I know, it's trying to keep track of those two.
Yeah.
You just gotta look for the M on the calendar.
I know.
The capital M.
So did zero periods
Too
count for
much.
any, I mean, my
No.
kids used to take 0 periods.
No.
And I've had my
Oh, okay,
students
so
ask
that's
me
It's
just
what
three
you are
times today
required
before.
to
Is today
be there.
minimum day?
Oh,
Not
okay.
what's
Minimum
offered.
It's a Wednesday.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, yesterday. Whole day long yesterday.
I understand.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve the calendars. My assumption also is that nothing here is really set in stone. We can revisit this if something changes.
The board generally just approves the calendar days. The board doesn't approve minimum days.
Right.
That's what I've always been told.
I'll vote to approve the calendars.
I can second it.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? We'll call for the vote. All in favor?
My son
Aye.
might ride a bus
Any
next
opposed?
year, because if you live in town, you don't get a
Item
bus.
I, public hearing. Willis Unified School District proposal to WTA, 545.
High school.
Government Code 3547 requires that the proposal of the district to the WTA be presented at a public hearing to seek public input on the proposal. This process is called sunshining. Once this process is completed, negotiations can begin. The Board of Trustees encourages public input. And do you have any further, Mark?
No, we've already put our document out. You already have ours.
Okay, well, Bob suddenly had to leave. He wanted me to share as chief negotiator that the openers will be salary, health insurance and benefits, Article 9, stipends, and concurrent teaching assignments with Willits Unified School District and Mendocino Junior Community College. I'll get something printed to give you.
Yeah. It usually comes on a letter format, like the one I did. Yeah.
Would you
So-
mind giving me that at the appropriate, when we do it? It's, right now it's just the open public meeting.
Okay.
That will be, number K, letter K.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
Robert should probably do a letter like the one I did, just replicate what I did and put your name in it. But yeah, that's generally what they look like.
So do we need to close the public hearing?
Maybe, yes.
There's no further comment from the public at this time. So we will close the public hearing on item I and move on to adoption of Willis Unified School District Sunshine Proposal to WTA for contract negotiations. So a motion to approve item J.
I can move that.
Paul moves. Okay. And seconded by
I'll second it.
Jean. Any further discussion of item J, adoption of WUSD Sunshine Proposal to WTA? Actually, we've discussed this.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Carries. And item K, WTA Sunshine Proposal to WUSD for contract negotiations.
I move that we accept that.
Okay.
That's what she just did.
Yeah, I know.
Item K. And seconded by?
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? And we'll call for the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Item L, public hearing, 6 p.m. Textbook instructional materials adoption, American Sign Language, and of course the ISBN number. Copyright 2013 by Kendall Hunt Publishing. The board welcomes public input. Any further on that, Mark?
We will try and be teaching sign language at the high school through the college. This is the textbook they use. We have to approve that textbook as part of the textbook adoption. It will bring a second language to the high school. It qualifies for students. For example, Spencer could take 2 years of sign language instead of Spanish, and it qualifies for the A through G requirement of the language. And so it's a really good thing for students to have.
So this is being taught as a college course?
A college course at the high school.
Isn't it already being taught at the community college?
They already teach it at the community college.
When they get enough students, because I tried to take it.
They need it.
Yeah, they will have enough students in the spring trimester because it's a high school class. So we know the class is going to run. It's going to run at the high school during the day.
That's great.
Yeah. So it's a very helpful, useful class. I would say it's one of the few language classes that people actually will remember a lot of stuff from.
It's really hands-on.
Yeah. Nice, Richard.
And
That's
it's
a bonus.
probably a full version where they're not allowed to speak.
You're on a
Like the
roll
one that I
tonight.
started to take, it was full immersion, you weren't allowed to speak at all. You had to totally
I like the sound of that
communicate with
class.
your hands. It was pretty neat.
We're gonna do a board meeting like that.
Yeah.
Oh, there'll be too many hand gestures going.
Not always the right ones.
So because it's part of the college program, does the district foot the cost for these books, or is it the college?
No, it's a college course, but we have to approve the book. We can't use any book that's not been approved.
So there's no cost to the district for this?
That's not true. Willits Unified is paying for those
Oh, are we
books.
buying the book?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
If the students won't be allowed to keep them, they will be.
Got it, okay.
Oh, okay.
This is not something that's going to end up on the Chromebooks, digital form? So,
No,
okay.
unfortunately, because it would be a lot cheaper.
So can I have a motion to approve item L?
I move we approve.
I'll second.
Okay, and no further discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we'll close that public hearing as well. Let's see. We have a series of first reads for that would be items M through U for first reads for board policies. So please work on reading all that good stuff. And
So, excuse me.
Paul wants to have discussion on, what letter is it?
Q,
Q.
but we can even dismiss the discussion if I don't need a discussion to just submit you some paperwork and volunteer to be on a committee with you.
I think
Oh,
that would be
okay.
great.
Is that okay instead?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Then that's what I'd like to do, please.
We'll subcommittee that Q
Thank
and
you.
come back.
In fact, I'd like to pull Q from this, so it's no longer a first read. And after we have utilized what Paula's input is with, and combining it with item Q, we can hopefully develop a new first read, if you
You
will.
want a table Q.
I want to table Q. And that way, when and if the board comes back with a new policy or a revised policy, everybody has an opportunity to review it before we have to actually adopt it. So with that tabling of item Q, we are at, and obviously item Q will be on the
Trina,
next board.
do they need to vote on tabling Q?
No.
Okay.
So we have looking for public comment on items that are not on the agenda.
Oh, I do. I want to be a member of the community. And I want to say that I've spoken a good deal with a lot of people about Measure G. And it was interesting for me to see yes signs next door to no signs. I really thought that that was a great visual for and to democracy. And I was really impressed that people could do that and it wasn't a problem. I had one disappointing concern, however, and that was that there were 3 signs that I know about that people told me about. 2 were no's and 1 was a yes, where they had been intentionally uprooted or cut from where they were posted and either thrown onto neighboring property or just laid on the ground. For my way of thinking, I noticed on the no's it says be sure to vote. I think that that's an important sentence. on the yeses and the nos, they were almost identical except for color and no and yes. And I just thought it was a major slap in the face to the good works of people being allowed to express their opinions and to accept opinions of other people. And I really do hope, probably none of you know anyone who would do that, but I do need it to be public that that's really disgusting. And that, you know, you make a decision to post what you think, even though balloting and voting is all private. At the same time, if you choose to do that, the thing that people need to remember is that you keep your hands to yourself and don't destroy other people's lives.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know it either, so I kind of went cruising around town looking, and I did speak with a couple more people that, a couple of my friends, one of them has a no, one has a yes. They live right next door to each other. And I said, whoa, what's happening? And the first thing both of them said was, do you know that some person did these things? And I said, people don't do that. Oh, yeah, they do. Well, I know that they do because I know during other elections, sometimes the sign is pulled up and people say, oh, I'm sure it was the wind. Well, it's a tough one to have one of those plastic garbage tie things be winded away. But, it's just real inappropriate when you're looking around and you're real proud of how people can stand up for what they believe in and express themselves in an adult fashion. And then have I can't believe a kid would do it because the kids I spoke to don't even know what Measure G is all about, so, and we live by Bethel, so they come by and if I'm outside, they go, hey, what is that? So you explain it to them. But it just, anyway, if we're to get back that, you don't like something, turn your head, but, have a little more mature attitude than that.
Yeah, absolutely. You're welcome to have your own opinion one way or the other. But
exactly.
The other part of that can be a little more scary is defacing or destroying those political signs is a criminal offense.
It is.
And you can be prosecuted. So it's not in your best interest to do that. It is very much in your best interest to either vote yes or no on your own and do what you can to influence others if you wish. But defacing or damaging those political signs is against the law.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I would move to adjourn.
Seconded. All in favor? Aye.